The thing that I found kind of a bit strange is that at the highest level, he reveals something called Xenu. And I'll go ahead and read this.
Dude.
According to Scientology.
Hey everyone, Aaron here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at an interview that a guy named DJ Vlad did with Grant Cardone. This interview was posted, this was actually back in 2019, and the interview was posted in several parts. Part 6 is called Grant Cardone, Becoming a Scientologist is the Secret to My Success. Let's see what Grant has to say about Scientology being the secret to his success.
Okay. And there's a lot of stories about Scientology. There's documentaries, there's just a lot of information that's going back since like the 80s. What made you become a Scientologist?
I read the book Dianetics when I was 25 years old, right out of a treatment center. And that book helped me understand why I was using drugs so much and actually helped me in my recovery process. Then I went and did, when I was 45 years old, I actually had an experience because of a friend of mine that had been studying Scientology. He was a bond trader, and he was one of the most successful bond traders in the United States. And I'm like, hey, what, you seem different, dude, than everybody else I meet. And he's like, well, if you want to know what it is, I'll tell you. I said, well, what is it? He said, it's Scientology. I said, well, where is it? When is it? And how can I get some of it? And at that time, the only thing I had done at that time was read the book Dianetics. And I was living in San Diego at the time. He was living in Houston.
Okay, quick comment. So every time he tells this story, he talks about having read Dianetics when he was 25 straight out of an addiction treatment center. He sort of implies that Dianetics helped him in his recovery process, and yet he doesn't get into Scientology, according to his story. He doesn't get into Scientology for another 20 years. He's going to tell us he doesn't get into Scientology until he's 45. Dianetics is supposed to be one of the ways people get into Scientology. He's saying it helped me, but it's not what got me into Scientology. It's just a weird part of the story.
I got an appointment to go to the church in San Diego. Went in there, asked them, hey, what do you do here exactly? Forget the media, the CNN, the tabloids. It didn't matter to me that John Travolta and Tom Cruise were Scientologists. That meant nothing to me. Like, I didn't give a shit. I'm like, all I wanted to know, what can you guys do for me? And the guy looked at me and says, what do you want to handle? What do you want to handle with your life? And at that time, I was 45 years old. I was single. I wanted a wife. I wanted kids. That wasn't happening. I was not in a good place to be a family man. I was scared of it. I was actually terrified of that kind of commitment. I owned 3 businesses at the time. I had a little bit of money, but I didn't know what to do with the money.
I can't help myself. Grant can't seem to separate the things that he's supposed to say in his stories when he's selling Scientology versus when he's selling his own personal business ventures or real estate investment opportunities. I had a little bit of money, but I didn't know what to do with it. Oh shit, that's what I say when I'm pitching my investments. I'm pitching Scientology now. I got to keep it straight. All right, let's see what else he's got.
Okay, this was just 16 years ago.
According to Grant, 16 years is the exact number of years since he got into Scientology, and we know that because he offhandedly said 15, and then he corrected himself and he said 16. And also earlier in this interview, he said he was 45 years old when he got into Scientology. So this video was posted in late 2019. 16 years prior to that would have been precisely 2003, late 2003, when Grant was 45 years old. There's just one problem. Grant didn't get into Scientology when he was 45 years old in 2003. He got into Scientology in 2001 when he was 42 years old or 43 years old, depending on when exactly he got in. Now, I don't want to hit you guys over the head with too much Scientology jargon and Scientology specific knowledge about this right now, but I'll just point out to you that we can see here on Scientologyservicecompletions.com that Grant Cardone finished the False Purpose Rundown Basic Form in Clearwater, Florida at the Flagland Base in 2002, February 1st. Source 137 here, that refers to the Source magazine, edition 137. That is the magazine sent out by the Flagland Base, and it lists all of the completions of courses and auditing that public and staff Scientologists completed since the previous edition of the magazine. You can tell from the dates that he completes certain actions when he might have started those actions. So for example, on the Hubbard Solo Auditor Course Part 1, we can see he finished this course at the Celebrity Center in Los Angeles, and he finished it in February 2003. This is a course that takes, on average, not less than 1 year. So if Grant finished this course in February 2003, we can say with a reasonable level of confidence that he started this course sometime around February 2002, which happens to correspond with the first date we see him showing up at Flag. Now, when it says Grant completed the Hubbard Solo Auditor Course Part 1 at the Celebrity Center in February 2003, that doesn't mean he did the entire course there. That means he finished it there. So it stands to reason that when Grant showed up at Flag and started working on this false purpose rundown basic form auditing, that at the same time he started the Solo Auditor Course Part 1 here at Flag. So someone might say, well, according to this website, the earliest record that we have of Grant being in Scientology is February 2002. That does possibly somewhat match up with his story, because in late 2002, Grant was 44 years old. And that would be a nope, because that brings us to our next problem. There's one thing that's entirely missing from this list of services that Grant completed in Scientology. And what's missing is his entire lower bridge. And I know I said I don't want to hit you over the head with too much here, but let me just show you something. This is Scientology's bridge to total freedom. The right side of this bridge is the part that has all of the auditing steps. When you see Grant finishing Solo Auditor Course Part 1, that course is located right here. It is also located right here, depending on the sequences with which you do some of these steps. Everything below clear on this bridge is called the lower bridge. And it is not possible to even enroll on the Solo Auditor Course Part 1 until after you've already finished your lower bridge. Except what's missing from this entire list is Grant's lower bridge. And that would most likely be the case if Grant in fact did his lower bridge in San Diego, which matches up with the version of the story that he tells about how he got into Scientology. So if we first see him popping up at Flag around 2002, February 1st, we can say with a reasonable level of confidence that Grant actually got into Scientology and started doing his lower bridge in early 2001. Now, early 2001 puts Grant at 42 years old, and it puts his entrance into Scientology 18 years prior to this interview with DJ Vlad. Why would Grant lie about something like that? Nobody in the world cares whether Grant's been in Scientology for 16 years or 18 years, or whether he was 42 or whether he was 45. Why would he lie about that? I think if Grant tells the story so that it looks like he got into Scientology 2 or 3 years later than he really did, then it looks like his entrance into Scientology had more of a direct cause and effect relationship to the growth he had in his business, when really the growth he had in his business had more to do with the networking effect of the people he was meeting in Scientology in Los Angeles. People like Bob Duggan, people who are actual billionaires, people like Bob Duggan and others like him in Scientology, who a parasitic bottom-feeding con artist like Grant Cardone can latch onto, can use, can squeeze for his network, his resources, his knowledge, his expertise, maybe even poaching some staff. Much of the success that Grant has seen in the years following his entrance into Scientology. If Scientology had anything to do with that success, it is more as a result of the networking effect of being in such close proximity to other members of a cult that you're a member of, who have a very high net worth and are willing to help you out. So I don't mean to make a bigger deal than it needs to be about something like a 2-year inaccuracy of a story, but I want to call it out because Grant is making an effort to be very specific about the details, and yet he has changed the details of the story. Because Grant is a bullshit artist who's going to tell you whatever story he thinks is best and is going to make you most likely to buy, whether it's an investment opportunity in his real estate fund scams or whether it's buying Scientology. He's just going to tell you whatever story he thinks works best. All right, let's see what else he says.
So if you look at the trajectory of my life since I was 45 years old, you're going to see like it's going to be slowly going upward and then all of a sudden straight up. And I have been there now for 15 years. I've done courses, books, auditing, a thing called auditing, that has given me so much peace in my life, so much more confidence, personal confidence. I used to be scared of everything. I don't have that anymore.
Do you guys think Grant Cardone was scared of everything? or is this just part of his storytelling?
When you look at some of the documentaries about Scientology, you go into certain different levels, right? And there is a highest level that you could achieve. And the thing that I found kind of a bit strange, that based on L. Ron Hubbard's writings, is that at the highest level, he reveals something called Xenu. And I'll go ahead and read this. So,
Xenu,
dude, according to Scientology,
it's ridiculous.
Right.
Scientologists aren't allowed to know anything about Xenu. They're not allowed to hear the name. Scientologists who already know about Xenu aren't allowed to say Xenu. If you're a lower level Scientologist and you ask someone who knows about Xenu if the Xenu stuff they've heard about is real, not only will they tell you we can't talk about that or don't ask those questions, they will say, no, of course, that's false. That's just bullshit. That's just what a bunch of SPs on the internet say. That's not what it is at all. Let's see exactly what Grant's reaction is to hearing the word Xenu on a massive platform like VladTV.
The highest level, he reveals something called Xenu. And I'll go ahead and read this. So, Xenu,
dude,
according to Scientology,
it's ridiculous.
Right. It's a
I'm just telling you. You want to know? Do you want to know?
75 million.
Do you want to know from me?
Yeah.
Most people are having trouble with yesterday and today.
Well, yeah, but for some people, particularly Scientologists, yesterday includes what happened with Xenu 76 million years ago when he blew everyone up with hydrogen bombs and dropped them into volcanoes. That is yesterday, Grant. That is what Scientology says your yesterday includes.
So you're going to read off some crazy, unbelievable shit that nobody cares about.
Crazy, unbelievable shit. Now, you'll notice he didn't say false, because you can call even something that's true some crazy, unbelievable shit. I could sit you down and tell a story and be like, I'm going to tell you some crazy, unbelievable shit. So to be fair, he didn't actually say the Xenu story is a lie, but someone could also interpret what he said to mean that as well.
They're worried about their families today, their kids today, their bills today, and their future tomorrow. So I didn't go there to handle anything about fucking trillions of years ago. I seem like a pretty fucking practical guy. I care about taking care of my wife, my kids, and my life. And I don't go to the media or the tabloids, and I don't fucking Google shit to find out what it is. I listened to a guy that was a very successful bond trader say, hey man, this helped me make good decisions day to day.
So Grant always mentions this bond trader as some sort of an authority tag. People in the sales profession would recognize the strategy as an authority tag. If it was just Grant's, mom or dad or whatever who got him into Scientology, that might sound a little more accurate, but it wouldn't create a great authority tag. Grant wants you to think that the country's #1 most successful bond trader was a Scientologist. Guys, I've asked around to everybody in the former Scientology community that I can think of. Scientology is a very small world. There is no Scientologist that anyone I've spoken to has been able to come up with, and I only asked other people because I myself have no knowledge of anyone in Scientology, presently or previously, who was known as one of the top bond traders. And a lot of people think he's talking about one of the Feshbach brothers, either Kurt Feshbach or Joe Feshbach or Matt Feshbach. Guys, these guys were not bond traders. These guys are not bond traders. They didn't live in Houston, Texas. There's a bunch of fund managers that are Scientologists who manage a variety of different kind of funds. None of them are bond traders. And by the way, if the guy really was one of the most successful bond traders in the entire country, wouldn't you want to mention his name? If this guy's been such a long-term Scientologist that he's recruiting someone like you into Scientology, wouldn't people know who this guy is? Wouldn't he be publicly out as a Scientologist? Wouldn't the world knowing that this guy was a Scientologist be good for Scientology? In the eyes of a Scientologist, wouldn't it be like people knowing that Tom Cruise and John Travolta are Scientologists? I am telling you, I believe Grant's entire version of how he got into Scientology is complete horse shit. And I challenge anyone watching to provide me enough information to prove otherwise.
And I'm gonna tell you, I've been down there 16 years. Half the shit I've seen on the internet about Scientology, 90% of the shit I've seen on the internet about Scientology is complete fucking garbage. It's helped me in my life personally. I have a beautiful marriage, 2 beautiful kids.
I would love for one of these interviewers to respond with something like, What is an example of something that you have seen said about Scientology that is bullshit? And do you like how Grant always tries to characterize, I say always because I've been watching a lot of Grant Cardone content recently. He always characterizes the negative information about Scientology as coming from the tabloids. The most reliable, definitive, and authoritative sources on abuse and fraud, etc., about Scientology don't come from the tabloids. They come from news organizations. They come from the New Yorker. They come from HBO. They come from Netflix. The only thing I ever see in the tabloids about Scientology is every time Tom Cruise has a movie coming out, there will be tabloid articles that say something like, Tom Cruise is leaving Scientology, or John Travolta is leaving Scientology. That's the only thing the tabloids ever writes. But Grant just wants to be dismissive about everything. An interviewer one of these days should be, give me an example. Give me an example of something that you've seen that you think is false. Because Grant's also not allowed to read any of the false information. See, that's what would make it so fun if an interviewer pushed back. In order for someone like Grant to give actual examples, he would have to admit to having read or been exposed to the information in the first place, except Scientologists aren't allowed to read that information. So if an interviewer wanted to get really cute and get really good, they could even say, well, where did you read that? Well, and then let's say he mentioned the Going Clear documentary. Grant, are you telling me that you watched the Going Clear documentary? Now, Grant may have watched the Going Clear documentary, but if he were to admit it in an interview, it would set a horrible precedent with other Scientologists, and Grant would get in trouble with his Scientology overlords. So anyway, if an interviewer really knew what they were doing, anytime they had someone like Grant in front of them, they could really put the screws to him and back him into a corner and make it impossible for him to honestly answer questions. And that would really show the world what Scientology is really about. When a high-profile public Scientologist is completely incapable of just honestly answering questions in an interview.
I'm a good father today. I'm dependable. I had 3 employees, dude, when I walked in there. Okay, I got 185 in Miami. I got another 150 in the real estate. I owned a handful of houses, of apartments when I was in San Diego. Maybe.
Scientologists always do this. They want to make Scientology sound credible by telling you about its business, about their business success that they've had since getting into Scientology, which seems to me to hit right up against what Scientology itself tries to do, which is make it seem as religious and spiritual as possible, which has nothing to do with business success. You don't hear, I converted to Christianity and ever since then I've 10x'd my income. Or yeah, I converted to Judaism and now I 5x'd my staff. Only Scientologists talk that way. It's really fucking weird. It's not weird to me. I know why Scientologists do it. They don't have the self-awareness required to see how weird it is that that's how they define success. That's how they define whether Scientology has helped them or not.
200 units. I own 6,500 today. So it's been a game changer for me. That's all I can tell you. Now, if people want.
So Grant starts a real estate syndicate, preys upon millennial investors through social media to raise hundreds of millions of dollars to buy overvalued real estate. And he's using that as something to lend legitimacy to whether Scientology works. Grant Cardone doesn't own 6,000 units. A real estate syndicate that using investor money has purchased using 80% leverage 6,000, probably now closer to 8,000 units. But when he tells the story, he's like, I used to own 3 houses. Then I got into Scientology. Now I own 8,000. That's not how the world works. That's not how investing works. That's not how holding assets works. And it's not evidence that Scientology works unless you're just looking at it as a business networking opportunity, which really is a bit more about what Scientology really is all about.
Want to get their information from Google and some documentary? Like the documentary they did of Michael Jackson. Somebody asked me if I watched that. I said, why would I watch a guy who can't defend himself?
What a horrible example. What a horrible example. Why would I want to see what all of these people who were abused by Michael Jackson has to say when he's dead and can't defend himself? Oh, Lord.
I'm not going to watch that. I'm not going to watch one side of a story.
Well, has Scientologists ever made a documentary to respond to all that?
Yeah, Scientology. It's called Scientology TV.
Okay. There you go. Okay, so you feel that Scientology is one of the keys to your success?
Dude, I would give what I've done there. There's $19 course. I'm doing a finance course they have there right now. It's $19. That when I read.
Guys, does anyone believe that a man who claims to be a billionaire, who claims to own billions of dollars of real estate, who claims to train others how to become billionaires, is doing a $19 finance course at the Church of Scientology? And if he is, should we be asking ourselves why fake billionaire Grant Cardone is doing a $19 finance course at the Church of Scientology? He's saying it like it's some great, fantastic thing. Look, Scientology offers cheap courses. Yeah, why are you doing a cheap finance course when you yourself sell to others very expensive finance courses? He seems to think he's answering questions when really he's generating so many more.
Read that finance course on the way down to New York, by the way. It took me maybe 3 hours to do the whole course. You can do it online. I went to accounting. I spent 5 years to get an accounting degree. I learned more in this little course pack this big than I learned in 5 years of college.
More bullshit stories from Grant Cardone. I learned more in a 3-hour, $19 finance course at the Church of Scientology that I did on a train ride, on a 3-hour train ride. I learned more in that course than I did during the 5 years that it took me to get an accounting degree. First of all, why in the fuck did it take you 5 years to get an accounting degree? And this is just a perfect example of what I mean by just bullshit storytelling by Grant Cardone. Just hyperbolic, over the top, exaggerated bullshit stories designed to sell things. And it doesn't matter whether he's trying to sell you a car, whether he's trying to sell you an investment in Cardone Capital, or whether he's trying to sell you on joining Scientology. All he's ever going to do is tell you bullshit stories. All right, everyone, that is all I have for now. Thank you for watching. Thank you to everyone who watches until the very end, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right